The Netherlands once treated military power as a specialist instrument, useful abroad, restrained at home. It is now rebuilding for the hardest task in Europe, credible deterrence inside NATO. This is Troop Talk. Let's begin. At Soesterberg Air Base, winter light lies flat on the concrete. Inside a hangar, a contract is signed with little ceremony. A few pages, a pen, a quiet handshake. Outside, the base looks unchanged. But the document points at a new kind of battlefield, where the threat often arrives as a small aircraft with a cheap engine, a camera, and an explosive charge. The Dutch transformation is often reduced to budgets and shopping lists. The more revealing story is architectural. The Netherlands is designing a force that gains weight by connecting itself to larger structures, alliances, supply chains, and command systems, while concentrating national effort on capabilities that partners cannot easily improvise. For a decade after the Cold War, that logic pushed the Dutch toward light expeditionary forces. Tanks were sold, heavy formations were cut, and the armed forces focused on peace support, special operations, and niche naval and air tasks. The assumption was that large-scale land war in Europe had become unlikely, and that the country could contribute best by being flexible and deployable. Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine in February 2022 shattered that assumption. The war exposed how quickly modern armies burn through ammunition, vehicles, and trained people. It showed how drones compress the front line, how electronic warfare degrades communications, and how air defense has to exist everywhere, not just around capitals. In that environment, a small state cannot buy safety. It has to build readiness, and it has to decide which parts of readiness it can supply itself. The Dutch answer has been to accept a trade that many militaries resist: less autonomy, more combat effectiveness. The centerpiece is integration with Germany, not as loose cooperation, but a structural embedding. The Dutch Army's 43 Mechanized Brigade has been part of Germany's 1st Panzer Division since March 17, 2016. It remains Dutch in uniform and recruitment, but it trains and prepares within a German divisional framework, including a fully integrated German-Dutch tank battalion. The sacrifice is political simplicity. National chains of command become more complex. The benefit is operational. The brigade sits inside a larger logistics and planning machine, and that machine is what turns battalions into sustained combat power. The same logic shapes the 11 Air Mobile Brigade. From June 2014, the brigade, about 2,000 personnel, became part of Germany's Division Schnelle Kräfte, a rapid intervention formation. Air mobile units live and die by lift, communications, and the speed of assembly. Embedding into a larger rapid reaction structure reduces duplication and increases the likelihood that a force can move quickly with the support it needs. Integration changes more than command charts. It changes timelines. A unit that plugs into established depots, transport, and maintenance chains can deploy faster and stay longer. It also changes bargaining power. A small army negotiating for ammunition or heavy transport on its own is limited by scale. A small army inside a larger structure gains leverage because its readiness becomes part of a collective promise. At sea, the Dutch apply a similar concentration strategy. The Royal Netherlands Navy does not try to be big, it tries to be indispensable. Its De Zeven Provinciën-class air defense frigates, around 6,000 tons displacement, are built around sensors and battle management. The ships carry the Dutch-designed APAR active phased array radar and long-range Smart L variants that extend detection far beyond the horizon. The measurable advantage is not only the number of tracks a ship can hold, but the ability to keep scanning while guiding multiple interceptors against multiple targets. In fleet air defense, that matters more than raw missile count, because the hardest problem is often not firing. It is seeing, deciding, and sharing the picture fast enough. In May 2021, during NATO's formidable shield exercise, the frigate HNLMS De Zeven Provinciën used an upgraded Smart L multi-mission radar to detect and track a ballistic missile target, passing the track data through allied networks to support an intercept. The episode mattered as proof of integration as much as detection. In European air defense, the limiting factor is often the sensor picture and the ability to share it without delay. A ship that can see farther and publish that picture reliably changes what the rest of the force can defend and when. That geometry now dominates the land domain. Ukraine has made one lesson unavoidable. Layered air defense decides whether forces can move, resupply, and survive. Long-range interceptors defend cities and strategic sites. Medium-range systems protect maneuver. The very short-range layer, guns and short missiles, defends the immediate targets: bridges, depots, command posts, airfields, and the columns on the road. For years, the Netherlands lacked a modern, mobile, gun-based short-range air defense layer.
On December 11, 2025, the Dutch Ministry of Defense announced that it had signed a contract for Skyranger systems in Soesterberg to strengthen defense against drones and low-altitude threats. Skyranger is a modular concept centered on a 30mm cannon turret with sensors and fire control, adaptable to vehicles or stationary mounts. The trade-off is range and consumption. The system defends a point, not a region, and it defeats drones with bursts of ammunition that must be replaced at speed. In exchange, it delivers a capability that missiles alone cannot, a high-volume, relatively economical response to targets that appear in swarms and at close range.
Air defense is only part of the return to heavy capability. In mid-May 2025, the Netherlands signed a contract to buy 46 Leopard 2 A8 main battle tanks, with an option for 6 more, at a reported cost of more than €1 billion. The decision reverses the 2011 logic that removed Dutch tanks entirely. It reflects a basic operational truth. In high-intensity land combat, protected mobility and shock effect are not luxuries. Without them, an army becomes dependent on others for offensive options, and even for defense, it risks being pushed into static choices. The Leopard 2 A8 represents a survivability package rather than a single improvement. It is designed to defeat threats not only with armor, but with detection, networked awareness, and active protection concepts intended to intercept incoming missiles before they strike. The constraint is time and capacity. Across Europe, demand for Leopard variants is rising, production is limited, and delivery schedules stretch into the late 2020s. The Netherlands is buying a capability that will arrive gradually, and it must rebuild crews, training pipelines, and maintenance alongside the vehicles themselves. Long-range fires are the other half of the land problem. Precision strikes beyond the forward line can isolate a battlefield by breaking depots, air defense nodes, and headquarters if the strikes can be sustained. In early July 2025, the Dutch Army carried out a validation firing of the PULS rocket artillery system on the Afsluitdijk, launching 16 rockets over 2 days to confirm safety and performance. The system's longest-range munitions are advertised at around 300 kilometers. The trade-off is clear. Range increases leverage, but rockets are expensive, and stockpiles evaporate quickly at real tempo. A long-range launcher is only as credible as the production lines and logistics behind it. Personnel is the hidden constraint behind every new platform. Growth is difficult, even for larger countries. On December 17, 2025, Dutch broadcaster NOS reported that the defense workforce had grown by nearly 20% in 4 years, adding roughly 12,500 employees since 2021. Expansion at that speed strains training capacity, requires more instructors, and increases the risk that new recruits meet an organization still adapting its equipment and culture. Yet without people, readiness is theoretical. Money sets ceilings. Statistics Netherlands, citing NATO estimates, put Dutch defense spending at €19.9 billion in 2024, about €1,105 per person. In September 2024, the Dutch Defense White Paper set out additional structural investment intended to lift annual expenditure to roughly €24 billion and meet NATO's 2% benchmark. These numbers become practical only when they translate into flying hours, sailing days, live fire ranges, and the spare parts inventory that keeps equipment from becoming museum pieces. But the deeper layer is industrial. Europe learned in 2022 that it could donate weapons and ammunition faster than it could replace them. Peacetime production lines were too slow, maintenance ecosystems were thin, supply chains for electronics and energetic materials were fragile. For smaller states, the problem is sharper. They can buy advanced systems, but they rely on wider networks for spare parts, barrels, batteries, and the skilled labor that keeps radars calibrated or vehicles drivable. The Netherlands has advantages: ports, logistics corridors, and a defense industrial base that specializes in high-value components, especially sensors and naval systems. Yet integration makes exposure unavoidable. When multiple allies place large orders at once, they compete for the same bottlenecks, even when they cooperate on paper. Buying through multinational agencies and allied frameworks reduces duplication, but it cannot remove scarcity, and scarcity is now a strategic variable. That is why modest procurement announcements can be strategically meaningful. On December 9, 2025, NH Industries announced a contract, signed through the NATO Helicopter Management Agency, for 3 additional NH-90 NATO frigate helicopters for Dutch maritime aviation. Maritime helicopters extend to ship sensors beyond the horizon and carry the tools of anti-submarine warfare and surveillance. The trade-off sits in timelines and sustainment. Deliveries are expected around 2030, and availability depends on parts, technicians, and the stubborn discipline of maintenance. The Dutch military that emerges from these decisions is not designed to be self-sufficient. It is designed to be credible inside a collective system and to deliver capabilities that raise the effectiveness of partners.
Tanks and rockets address the arithmetic of land war. Short-range air defense answers the drone problem that has remade front lines. Naval sensors and maritime aviation help secure sea lanes and critical undersea infrastructure. Integration with Germany turns limited national mass into operational weight. Over the next 12 to 24 months, the test will be less about announcements and more about absorption. New systems must become routine. Crews trained, tactics written, munitions stocked, maintenance organized, and exercises run at real tempo. The Sky Ranger contract signed in December 2025 will become a question of basing and integration with existing air defense command networks. The Leopard 2A8 program will force early decisions on training pipelines and maintenance partnerships, because a tank without trained crews is storage, not deterrence. Back at Sosterberg, the hangar doors slide shut. Paperwork becomes schedules, schedules become training, and training becomes readiness. The transformation is not measured in speeches, but in the quiet hours when equipment becomes habit and allied integration becomes reflex. In a crowded theater, that reflex is the Netherlands' chosen form of strength.